So today's webinar is focused on fulfillment for subscription boxes. If you have to step out at any time during the webinar, no worries. This webinar is being recorded, and there's a lot of other places that you can go to find this webinar or more content like it. First of all, being Subscription School. So if you haven't had a chance yet, check out subscriptionschool.com. This is a cool free resource for everybody, and it has guides, videos, webinars, everything that you need to know to run a subscription business, from customer acquisition down to packaging and fulfillment to general entrepreneurship and customer service stuff. So check us out. Like I said, the webinar is being recorded and it'll be available in our video section. And so you can just click into videos and you can see all of our past webinars and other cool things that we've created in the past on different topics. Outside of that, I really encourage you to come and check out our Facebook group. So we've got a private Facebook group, Subscription School, set up for subscription merchants, people who are starting subscription businesses. So if this is you, find us on Facebook. It's a private group, so you have to request entry. But for being in the webinar today, you get instant access. So go ahead and request entry into this, and we'll get you approved sometime today. And also follow us on Facebook. And so if you're looking for updates on webinars, new guides, new videos, new interviews, following Subscription School on Facebook is probably your best bet. So I'll take out these windows here. And if you're interested in learning more about cable packaging, we're going to learn a lot more about them today when Chris is discussing outsourcing. But their website's cablefulfillment.com. They do both packaging and fulfillment services. And once we get over to that side of it, I'm sure Chris will give us lots of great information. If you're just joining us too, I'm not going to repeat anything of what I just said, but if you do have questions, check out the GoToWebinar control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and that's how you can ask us questions. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. Let me just get this this presentation to load. There we go. So, like I said, we're focusing on fulfillment today. There I am on the left-hand side. So take a minute to meet us. Check out those resources I have here on the right-hand side. That's the website, the Facebook groups, etc. My background is subscription commerce, so I've been doing this for about 6 years. My first successful subscription box company was called Conscious Box, which we scaled to tens of thousands of subscribers. I'm going to show you some pictures of today. And I've done everything from cat boxes to vacation a month boxes to food and artisan boxes to helping gamer boxes to get launched to basically everything. So if you have any questions for me or want to learn more about me, check out my blog. It's just jesserichardson.com. And our special guest is Chris. So Chris has been doing fulfillment for a super long time. Chris, do you wanna walk us through this? I don't wanna read all the stuff off if you wanted to say it yourself.
No, I'd be happy to. Hello to everybody. I've been doing this for a number of years and doing it on an international and global scale as well as on a national scale, from business to business consumer. You can see some of the companies that I've worked with, but I've also worked very much in a consultative role in laying out the logistics, the pathway for companies from end to end, from start to finish, like with when the order comes in and when it goes out the door. So I'm going to add on some commentary here as we go through. But if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer them. I think my contact points are somewhere along here that Jesse's going to hand out. But be glad to talk to you about anything you want to talk about on logistics. Jesse, up to you.
Great, thanks, Chris. So today we're gonna go over a couple different things. We're gonna talk really briefly about what is fulfillment. So what is it that we're talking about right now? Then we're gonna look at it in two different ways: how to handle it yourself, which I like to call in-house because most of the times it's literally in a house, and then how to outsource it to a third party. And with each one of these things, we're gonna talk about when it makes sense to do this, or what are the main justifications to do it this way or that way. And so we'll really work through what these two things are and how to navigate these two options efficiently and effectively for your subscription business. And then at the end of the webinar today, we're going to give you guys a little assignment, something to get your juices flowing, get yourself ready to take your fulfillment operation to the next step. So let's just jump right into this. And I want to mention here too that if you are asking questions, we dedicate the last 15 minutes or so to answering those questions. So if you ask something and you don't get a response right away, don't worry about it. You don't got to post it twice. We'll certainly get to your questions at the end of the webinar. Okay, so fulfillment. What is it? So fulfillment essentially is just that operation of assembling packing, shipping your boxes. Um, it's the logistics behind getting your product into a delighted consumer's hands and getting paid for it. And second sentence right there is how Chris likes to explain it. And I think it's a great explanation. I mean, it's really the operation of putting your product together, um, and dealing with those logistics, and then getting them to your subscribers. And so this includes a whole bunch of different things, right? It's going to be the storage of product, the storage of boxes. It's going to be tracking inventory, making sure that inventory is being taken care of and it's being counted, it's keeping it safe. Um, it's going to be dealing with, receiving different types of orders, even offering customer support in terms of tracking where boxes are at, the status of your fulfillment, or your packing that month. It's going to deal with ordering supplies, packing material, tape, shipping labels. Um, it's a very large operation that deals with a couple different things, just on the early side of planning, but then also is going to deal with an assembly of the boxes. So actually folding the boxes, putting the packing material inside those boxes, um, dropping in your products, making sure it looks just right. You're folding the tissue over, you're putting your little placement card on top, and then taping those boxes, slapping on a shipping label, and handing off to a shipping courier. I think, from my just from my experience with subscription boxes, I feel like there are two things that scale, with the growth of your company. So as your subscriber count grows, there are going to be two things that are going to scale alongside with that are going to be more difficult than just about anything else. I think those two things are customer support, because you're going to be servicing more people. You need a bigger team dealing with more unique issues, that type of thing. Um, but secondly, it's fulfillment. When you are scaling your business, this operation is going to be directly affected by how well you do your marketing. The better you do your marketing, the harder it is going to be to stay efficient and to get your orders out in the same speed you have, when you first launch your business. And so it's a big operation. It's something that shouldn't be considered, kind of an afterthought of your business. I think actively planning for a smart fulfillment, approach is one of the smartest things that you can do for your subscription business. So even if you're at a small stage right now, I think that a lot of stuff we're going to cover today is going to be helpful in kind of setting up the pathway forward for your business, on this type of operational and logistical side, that, like I said, I think is really important. Um, so
Jesse,
first,
when you
oh,
Jesse,
go ahead.
I just want to add there. I just want to add there that what you're really talking about is fulfillment will take away from your time to manage your business, and two, if you're packing boxes, you're not selling something and you're not marketing and what have you. So
Right.
when you realize, if you don't plan for it, like you said, and if you realize, oh my God, I've got too much to do, it's probably going to be too late and cause some issues and errors and things like that on that box that's going to go out the door. So I think your point of planning
Right.
is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good note. I mean, one of the main things this costs you, and that's one of the things that we're going to jump into, with packing in-house and dealing with it yourself, is your time. I mean, I think that, this is something that can be easily underrated or starting up, because you're just thinking to yourself, I'm a business owner, it's my time, it's not really worth anything. But to Chris's point, I mean, the more time you spend packing boxes is the less time you spend marketing your product and actually getting more subscribers. And that really rears its head as you go forward. So when we think about packing in-house, that still is a good benefit. I mean, it's going to be saving you money, even though it's costing you time. So let's kind of unpack this a little bit here. I think that the main motivating factor behind keeping fulfillment in-house is your cash flow. Um, so if you're a small scale subscription business, you've got under 250 boxes or so, and that's a number we're going to kind of go into a little bit deeper here too. Um, then it makes sense, or it can make sense here to just keep packing yourself. And so this is going to be based on a few different things. How are you actually packing the boxes? Do you have a facility for it? Is it okay for you to use a garage? Do you have a space like a garage to use? Is it clean? Is it a suitable enough space to be packing these types of products? How are you actually calculating the cost savings too, is I think really important. Are you paying yourself for the time of packing? Are you paying others to pack? How much are you paying them? What are the costs of the materials you're getting yourself into? And what are the other expenses associated with packing and organizing your team internally, that may or may not contribute to the justification of keeping it in-house? When I think of the best way to have in-house fulfillment, it's the really scrappy way, and it's when it's you and your business partners packing, because you don't have to pay yourselves for time in the sense that it's just a contribution of your it's sweat equity. Um, and by taking out that cost of labor, that's really I think the biggest place, and maybe even the only place that keeping the operation in house is going to really save you dollars in terms of materials. Oops, slide went over. In terms of materials, or in terms of um, the expense of having like a warehouse or something like that, those things are likely going to be cheaper through a fulfillment partner in the sense that they can scale things up and down. And that's something that we're going to jump into in the next couple slides here. But, outside of the cost of labor, there's little savings that you can squeeze of in-house fulfillment. And like I said, the main one being your time. So if you're looking to save money, just realize that you're going to have to be committing more time. And I think it takes quite a lot of attention on your part to look at your other costs and to actually make sure that those other costs are lining up in the way that you think they are. So, am I paying too much for materials, tape, packing materials, shipping labels, or other things like that that may actually justify outsourcing my fulfillment? Um, the other benefit of packing in-house is it's really easy for a small staff of people. So packing in-house is mostly only efficient um, in terms of, and when I think of efficiency, I think of a third party fulfillment partner, how they do it efficiently. So compared to what we do, in our own homes or in our own garages, it's really only efficient when you have a small team of people with a very simple product. Um, a simple product would be like one box variation. So if you have a subscription box that you have, the mini, the regular, and the Lux size, and each the mini, the regular, and the Lux size each have unique diet requirements. And so you have three different types of boxes with three different diet requirements. You have a total of 9 different variations of boxes. A setup like that will immediately become very, very difficult, even if it's with a small team of people. It's like if you have 4 people you're working with, make sure you're only packing one type of box, because it'll just get confusing in terms of product storage, in terms of where people are packing on the line, in terms of which box is being worked on at that time. There are obviously things that you can do to um, ensure that there's minimal confusion. But if you're working with a small staff, you've got a simple product. I see that as another good reason to keep it in house. As a team grows, I mean, you're gonna have to manage more operational tasks, and that's gonna mean more justification for getting someone else like Chris here to do that stuff for you. And so I kind of put out a couple things here that I think are, you know, um, kind of indicative of what those operational tasks can bubble up to be. So, let's just say you're packing 250 boxes this month, and you've got 3 people, and it's you and your business partner, and your 2 or 3 friends. Um, the moment you get to 1,000 subscribers, or 1,500 subscribers, or 2,000 subscribers, or even 500 subscribers, you're going to really quickly realize, well, if we want to do this in a 6-hour period, we got to get 2 or 3 more people with us. The moment that you get 2 or 3 more people with you, you got more people in the room. There's some human resources considerations there, and I think that everybody likes to think that if they hire friends and family, there won't be any fighting in the business workplace. Definitely not the case. So you will have some HR considerations there. If you're thinking about monthly recurring packers, people who are coming to your house each month to pack your boxes, you're probably going to run into the question once in a while of, hey, can I get a 1099 from you? I would like to report this income. And that means you have to do tax forms. That means you've got another operation right there in dealing with private contractors. If you have 1,000 boxes one month and 2,500 boxes the next month, that's going to require a different size of a space, just hands down. Like, unless you have a very flexible space, or there's something unique about the space you're working in right now, if if you are scaling your business, you're going to have to scale the workspace behind fulfillment. And scaling operations means increased cost for a dedicated space. Um, that dedicated space is going to have its own things with it. You're going to need to have quality insurance in that space to make sure stuff isn't being destroyed and there's not mice running in. You need to be, tracking your inventory better, because you might have 8, 9, 10, 15 pallets of products in there at any time. Um, you want to be tracking your boxes a little bit better, because you're at that point where no one person can kind of keep track of things with a pen and paper. You might need better equipment. You might need standing mats for your packers now. You might need waist high, or middle chest high tables, or adjustable height tables. You might need a new power label printer. That little Dymo thermal printer just might not cut it when you're printing 3,000 labels. And I'm going to show you a picture of what I mean here, because that's a real consideration. Where it will take you 10 hours to print labels through a normal label printer. So you got to buy something else there. Maybe you want to buy some coffee machines, some dispensers for your packers once you have 10, 15 people packing for you. So you can kind of see here, there's like all these different things that start to come up when you start to scale in-house fulfillment that are certainly, you can certainly do it. And it's something that I did with Conscious Box when we had tens of thousands of subscribers coming through each month, and we were packing tens of thousands of boxes. But the amount of work that is put into that means usually like another full-time manager just to manage that operation, with a dozen or more packers when you're dealing with the scale of a few thousand boxes. So
Jesse, I wanted to add something to you on the quality side of it. People say, well, we'll make a mistake and we'll fix it and that kind of stuff. But I want you to understand, if you got a $30 box going out the door and you're making 20% profit, so let's say the box costs you $24. One mistake means to fix that mistake costs you the profit from 8 more boxes. So when you have multiple people, multiple operations going on, as you said, the simplicity of it, if you can eliminate the mistakes, you're saving yourself money. But one mistake is not a one-for-one trade-off. It multiplies on
yep.
itself because it's taking profit it's taking more of your boxes out of there and profit from it to pay for that error.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we can do, as first-time business owners or small owners of small startups, that we don't really realize that math. Like we can add up the cost of packaging and the cost of tape and the cost of labor, but like all those little tiny unknowns, like Chris is explaining, if you have a 4% error rate of packing, and a fulfillment partner can offer you a 1% fulfillment error rate or lower than that, like they that you only get 2 or 3 boxes messed up out of your 1,000. That is significant savings for replacements, for that cost of shipping, for all of that stuff, and that's stuff that's kind of be a little bit more difficult to track, but is very, very can be very, very impactful for your business. And I think that's why I kind of center on this number here of 250 subscribers. And that's because right around that amount of 250 subscribers, 300, maybe 400, 500 if it's like a simpler box. That's when I've seen across the board, that's when efficiency seems to be peaking, at a startup. And once you go past that, you're going to get higher rates of errors. You're going to get more confusion in the workplace in terms of storage and product organization. It's gonna at that point it's gonna really start to require you to put more of your time and energy into managing that operation versus it being like this fun thing you do for a couple hours each month with your business partner and your 2 friends. As you scale up, it becomes a vastly different thing. It's not the same animal the whole time. So you can see here these kind of points I just kind of read out basically. Operational scale for 1 to 3 people. You're no longer looking at 6 to 8 hours from one day. You're looking at 6 to 8 hours maybe over a multiple day period. You got to get more people, and that brings in those other issues. So there might be other elements of packing that are now more difficult to deal with. One of the biggest being cardboard waste. If you're packing out of your garage and you think that you can deal with the waste that comes behind 1,500 boxes and all the products that get sent to your garage, you are going to be terrified with the amount of trash you have. And that's something that a fulfillment center, they don't even blink at. Like they have operations set up for that type of thing. But it can be a hugely new and difficult and cumbersome thing for someone working out of their house. Once you complete your box, where are you going to store those boxes? Product storage in general. All those things become very, very big issues very quickly because of the size and the nature of the importance of those things. One of the other things that I think is really interesting right around 250 subscribers is when you schedule a mail pickup through USPS or someone like that, if you're not a third party, if you're not a fulfillment company or you're not like a box packaging manufacturer, the post people, they like do not understand why you're shipping all these boxes, and it's going to be really difficult to work with them. I've been shipping subscription boxes every single month for 6 years, and I still have USPS people who come and pick things up or have come and picked things up in the past and been like, you can't do this. This doesn't look like it's the right cubic tier. what is a cubic tier. I don't think that you're allowed to do this thing. And I'm explaining to them like, listen, trust me, this is totally fine to do. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. But it becomes like this cumbersome process where you then have to deal with a postmaster, and you have to deal with this, this finicky courier who is doing his regular mail route and then has to pick up, 300 boxes, shoe size boxes, and he's just very confused. And so working with your shipping couriers can be more difficult at this stage. Getting those boxes to the courier, if you want to put them in your car and drive them there yourself, that's a pain in the butt. Um, it becomes harder to calculate for your supplies, your needs, your tape, your filler. Everything at scale becomes more difficult and more time intensive, which is why, like I said, or like Chris said, that means more time spent away from marketing your business. Um, Outside of that, I want to give you guys a visual. So on the left hand side, you can see my partner Bjorn. He's the one looking at the camera. You can see my fuzzy head there in the back, um, and then Jameson standing just right behind me. That was like one of the first couple months of Conscious Box, and so we had a couple lines. You can see there's basically like 5 people in the office. That was the business owners and a couple friends packing a couple hundred boxes. Um, in the center picture, this is us managing fulfillment once we got to a few thousand boxes. And you can see we weren't even able to capture all of the boxes that we had in that room. You can see it's kind of cut off on the top left of that center picture. In addition to that, all the boxes you see stacked already have labels on them, and you can see a big stack of labels that we still have to put on new boxes. So this was like a snapshot at 1 a.m. Of us trying to continue to manage our in-house fulfillment operation. And you can see there's some paper towels behind the computer. Those paper towels were mainly used just to dry up our tears from all the pain that we had getting this operation done. Um, it's super difficult. Now, on the right-hand side, this is what the operation looked like when we got our chops down. We had 40 different part-time packers each month. We had a warehouse manager. We got a huge 5,000 square foot warehouse in Portland, Oregon. We had different stations for people. I bet Chris is looking at this right now and saying, "What are those guys doing? That's not the right way to do it." So even when we had done this for 3 years, we were still making mistakes that a fulfillment partner would come in and be like, "What are you doing? And why are you doing it this way?" And this is from the first picture to the third picture is, I mean, I'll be totally frank with you. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars of mistakes that we made over the course of years. It was not small time mistakes because it's cumulative. It's a lot of stuff that compounds over time. And when I look back, if we just would have outsourced after that first picture, we probably would have had higher margins, less customer service, a heck of a lot less HR stuff to deal with, especially once we had 40 part-time employees, a lot less paperwork. It's just, it feels like it's something that you want to handle yourself because you're so unsure if a fulfillment partner can do it for you. But after working with fulfillment partners, I've really found that they are experts at their job and they can actually do it better than me. So what do you think about that, Chris? Is that right? Do you see that third picture and does that just make you shudder?
Well, it doesn't make me shudder, but it certainly is not the way we would do it. The way you have it laid out there, we would. You're absolutely correct, and I go back to the middle picture because I think about one of the biggest cost elements to a subscription box is postage, and when we do it, we would run those labels by zip code zone, so that we could ship those out and save people money from a save the customers money from a shipping standpoint. Looking at the third picture, we would have a production line where we would bring the pallets up to the production line and a conveyor going down through, and we would have people putting it in the box such at the other end it would get onto a pallet and get ready to go out the door. So,
right,
Jesse, you guys were made money there, but we would have ours would probably take up less, would definitely take up less space and less people than what you have going there
right.
to produce that kind of lever.
And I think that right there, I mean, I remember looking into conveyor belts and different pieces of machinery, those big stretch wrap things for our pallets. That stuff is not cheap. It's extremely cost prohibitive to upgrade a warehouse, like to get a warehouse and then put all the machinery in it that's going to make it as competitive to a third party partner like Kable. I imagine that stuff is like in the realms of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment that you've accumulated over years and through expertise and stuff like that, where if we try to do that, we probably would have, fitted our warehouse with probably not the best stuff or the too expensive things, or we wouldn't even really understood what we actually even really needed. Which is part of the reason why we kept everything so manual. So I think that these, hopefully it doesn't totally scare you guys to not be subscription box entrepreneurs anymore, but hopefully it dissuades you from thinking that you can bring your business up to 50,000 subscribers a month and then it'd be a walk in the park to deal with fulfillment. Uh, and kind of that said, I want to ask you guys a question. Since you guys haven't posted any questions yet to us, I want to launch a poll. Just make sure you guys are staying engaged. I want to know, how would you rate the difficulty of fulfillment currently and how you perceive it, or how you're actually experiencing it right now. So I'll leave this up here for about 15 seconds, or I'll give you actually 30 seconds, versus a huge operation, so that it might even fall into the easy part. But I think your guys' heads are mostly in the right place. And again, just because I've noticed that we haven't had any questions yet, if you guys do have questions about in-house fulfillment or things related to the last kind of bit of slides we just went over, now's the perfect time to post them, because we're about to jump into the outsourcing side of the webinar, and we're going to let Chris go into some more detail about that thing. So let me go back into presenting, and we will kick this thing off for outsourcing. All right, just a moment here. It's giving me, looks like it's loading. Okay, it looks like it doesn't want to present for me. All right, we'll just do it this old-fashioned way. Okay, so option number 2 is obviously outsourcing fulfillment. When you think about outsourcing fulfillment, there's a couple high-level things I would point out. There's going to be a minimum sometimes, most of the time. I think Chris can probably explain that a little bit more to us. It can seem expensive at low quantities, but the thing to keep in mind is that some of the expenses that you see with fulfillment, maybe like line setup fees or other type of one-time fees, those get pulled out across hundreds of boxes, thousands of boxes. Those things become much cheaper. So as you grow, it becomes a much better idea. It becomes more cost efficient, more time efficient. So it's a good option for scaling businesses or businesses that are growing rapidly. But you are going to want to require some securities. You're going to want to follow some best practices, and that's stuff that we'll go into here. And then again here with Chris, these next couple slides, feel free to jump in. I'm gonna glance over this stuff, and if there's any cool things you want to explain about these next few slides, just let me know. For outsourcing, I mentioned a minimum of 250 subscribers. The main reason I mentioned this is because what I've noticed is that there are a lot of minimums, which totally makes sense, because you don't want to be, taking on a client as a fulfillment partner if they're only packing 20 boxes. So when you think about outsourcing, make sure you've got a big enough of a subscriber group for it to make sense for a third-party fulfillment partner, so they're going to take you seriously, and also for the reason like I said earlier, so that it's more cost efficient. By having a bigger group of subscribers, you're going to open yourself up to more savings and more optimization. There's not ever. I don't think there's a very specific number for this is the bare minimum for everybody. I've heard it around 200. Chris, do you guys have a minimum over there at Kable?
We don't, but I mean, 200 to 250 is about where it starts making some sense,
right.
Because there are some costs and things like that. And you're right, we do spread out costs across a number of customers and subscribers. I think the thing that you really got to start looking at when you're thinking about cost is it's not just the cost of fulfillment, but also your time that you have to spend doing a lot of other things like reconciling, making sure you have your inventory, making sure that when you start with 100, you chip 50, you have 50 left over, and you don't have 35. All the little things that get into it that take away your time, and I think when you also need, by doing it yourself, and then when you start scaling it, it also puts into perspective when you have last-second changes or maybe some choices that you're making to adjust your box. You don't want when you look at your picture back there. The last thing you want to do is have someone come in and say, "Oh my God, we have to put another item into your box."
Yeah.
and you're going, where are we going to do that? And now we got to go back and open some things.
If I
So I
had a
mean,
nickel for
it
every
just
time that happened. Happens more often than you think. But yeah, no, I think those are, yeah, I would agree with Chris from my experience from an operational standpoint. I mean, those are the things that um, that definitely lend to the rationalization of working with a fulfillment partner at this stage. I also think that doing fulfillment yourself for a couple months is a good idea, um, mainly because you can have a better appreciation of the insane nuances and insane operational demands of this work, so you can better appreciate and understand how good of a deal a lot of fulfillment partners are going to offer you. It also helps you speak the fulfillment language a little bit more. You'll know a little bit more about kitting and packing and how many inches of tape you even need for your box, and it's just going to give you a better perspective of how to communicate those things. And then these two other perspectives it's going to give you too. It's going to give you a cost of service perspective. If you do it yourself for a couple months and then you want to move over to a third party fulfillment partner, you've got numbers in your books, right? You've got an accounting bottom line that you can look at. This is how much we spent on labor, tape, packing material, et cetera, when we did it ourselves. And here's the quote from Chris at Kable. We can actually look here. Does it make sense now, or should we wait for another couple hundred more subscribers? Does it make sense now, or whatever it might be? Also, it's going to give you that sense of a time perspective, like Chris has been stressing. I mean, if you've noticed that you've taken 8 hours out of your day for 3 days out of the month, the last 3 months to pack boxes, that is, 24 hours. You almost had like, you almost have, a full, almost a week and a half, a whole new work week that you could have spent the last 3 months marketing your business. And imagine if you would have spent, another 72 hours on marketing.
Jesse, as an example, one of the subscription box companies that we do work for does snacks from around the world. They're a smaller company with right now about 3,000 or 4,000 boxes a month. But when we started with them, they came to us at about 600 boxes in a month. And the people told me that by the time they got all the elements in and got it ready to go, it took them a week to pack 600 boxes.
Wow.
It took us because we have standard processes, we have standard things that we go through. We know how to go through this, and I'm just talking about us, but a fulfillment company. It took us 2/3 of a day.
Wow, yeah, and that's what I'm talking about there. And now they got their week back out of the month, and now they're marketing it, and now they have thousands of subscribers.
So I mean that's just that's an example I think might be relevant to a lot of the listeners.
Yeah, no, I think that's head on, and I think that's what I one of the reasons why I really stress. I mean, I was very gung ho against outsourcing, because I was super, I was a perfectionist with the box. I didn't think that anybody else could do it better than us. Um, and I mean, that's one of the main things that I've noticed now working with a lot of fulfillment companies is that time saving is invaluable. I mean, the amount of time it just as a question for yourself, how much do you value your time? But going into this next part here, scaling with efficiency, outsourcing I think is one of the biggest perks for it. Besides saving you time, is going to be when you're scaling, and like I mentioned this earlier, it, excuse me, if you're scaling very quickly, you're going to get growth pains. I mean, it's going to be difficult for you to be working out of your 1,000 square foot office for much longer if you're growing by 500 customers a month. Fulfillment companies are way more nimble and way more responsive to your growth than you can be, because they've got big warehouses, because they've got teams of temp workers that they're ready to pull in. They've got different production lines set up for different volumes that they can spin up very quickly. They're built for this type of thing, and so they can be quick at contracting their use space and their workforce, and their supplies, and dealing with all that stuff without you having to worry about it. Um, and like I said, when you're scaling up, a lot of the small expenses like a line setup fee or other type of like receiving or storage fees per pallet that you might be getting with fulfillment companies, those things spread out over a few thousand subscribers are like minimal. They're like, it's nothing at that point. And so for a scaling company, the flexibility that they give you with the minimal amount of costs associated with very common things like storage and pallet storage and receiving costs, Um, I think it just is a further justification to work with a fulfillment partner. It will save you time, save you money. It'll make it easier for you to grow and enable you to grow more and more quickly. Um, the other cool thing is that I think about, and I've had a lot of cool conversations with fulfillment companies about this, and some of these have been with Chris too, is when you have a fulfillment partner who is smart and good at their job, you can go to them and have a problem and say, hey, Chris, we want to build a subscription box along these lines. We have this ingredient that has to be at, this temperature, or it has to be packaged this way. How can we do this? And then a fulfillment partner like Chris can say, let me explore solutions for you and let me develop an efficiency for you that you might not be able to understand or work out on your own because you don't work in packaging and you don't work in fulfillment. And I think that's one of the biggest assets. It's almost like having another employee on your team, but you don't have to pay them a salary.
The thing I'd like to add to it to all the listeners, what's key is the customer experience when they get the package, and what we provide is the consistency from the first one to the 10,000th one. It's going to be the same, and when you're trying to manage people, and if you don't have a solid process or you don't have a repetitive process, we're experienced at it. We being the fulfillment world are experienced at it. We're going to provide you the consistency that you're going to get from the first to the last one for that customer experience. When they open the box, it's going to have the right stuff in, it's going to be packed right, and it eliminates a lot of the variability because we've been doing it for years. To your example, on a typical day, we'll have over 100, 110 temporaries working with our full-time people, and if a package is scheduled to go out today or be assembled today, and we didn't get a component, we'll simply move those people to other work while we're waiting for the last component of your box to come in, versus you, if you had people coming in and you paid for them and the stuff didn't come in, you're paying for these people for the day, at least a minimum charge if they're coming in to work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Okay, so outside of that, I think another interesting thing here is, and this is kind of what Chris just spoke to in terms of the consistency and the quality, is when you're outsourcing, you can get some new securities and you can get some, you can work some new best practices into your operational oversight of this part of your business to help ensure that you get that quality and you get that attention that a fulfillment company like Kable will give you. So if you're outsourcing, I would suggest, always still taking ownership of that task in terms of it's up to you to ensure a quality product. So even if you're using a fulfillment company, don't use it as an excuse to remove yourself. A lot of fulfillment companies are going to do a great job, but you should still actively be part of that operation and actively, I think, I don't think you want to like totally spam them and be a total pain in the butt, but I don't know. What do you think, Chris? Do you think it's beneficial? Do you like having business owners reach out to you and be like, hey, did we receive this? How does the box look? You did a great job this month. You did a bad job this month. Here's why. Is that stuff useful for you guys?
It is absolutely useful to make sure that we're delivering what you expect to go out the door. And we work with customers on the first box before every month. We put a golden box together. We take a picture of it to make sure that it's right, and what have you, so that we put the items in the right sequence and order that you want to. So we do. You're right. You can go crazy and call us like every 10 minutes or something like that. But at the same point in time, we do look for and solicit your participation, the client participation in getting the box set up, making sure that the experience is right, because that's how you're going to sell more stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Great. So you heard it from himself. So call him all day. No, I'm just kidding. And some of these best practices that I suggest is, always make sure that you have your fingers on the pulse of your product. I'm always on my fulfillment partners' butt about when have my products arrived, what's the status, are there breaks? Does it look like there's any breaks or missing things? Before they pack boxes, I request a photo of the sample box. And a big part of this too, I want to mention, which maybe we'll see in the questions. You don't need to get a fulfillment partner that's local. You could totally get a fulfillment partner based out of Ohio or something like that, someone centrally located, and it doesn't have to be anywhere near your main office. That's beneficial because having a centrally located fulfillment partner can give you different price breaks with shipping and that type of thing. So if that's the case, request photos of your sample box builds, your mock-ups. Make sure you're staying clear and crisp on the volume of your boxes left, on the filler, any required materials you have. Make sure you're communicating with your fulfillment partner to figure out that you guys are in a good spot for this next packing. You can request quote updates for anything special. So maybe if you want to add an extra insert, you want to add a sticker to a product, you want to wrap products in custom butcher paper, anything like that, send it to them as early as you can. Like I said, get your pulse on, get your fingers on the pulse of the product, and keep your partners updated, so they can continue to provide as clear and as accurate quotes as possible. And then there's always just the fact of, always make sure they have time and the availability to pack your boxes when you need to pack them. I usually email my partner about a week and a half before if there's anything weird about my normal date, just to make sure that there's no constrictions or sensitivities on their part in terms of what we're shipping out that month. So I think those are just some general best practices. We're going to go into another slide about quotes here in a moment. But if you're interested in outsourcing, the place to find them is on Subscription School. And go to the resources section of Subscription School. You can go under packaging or shipping. It might also be there too. And you can find different packaging and fulfillment companies. A couple on there are going to be Kable, who is with us today. That's with Chris. I use Northwest Paper Box up in Portland, Oregon. But there are a couple other mentioned there, and they've all been vetted. They've all been used by their subscription companies, who are merchants or just people who have left reviews. And so it's a good source to start looking. And then, like Chris said, I'm going to give you guys his contact information at the end of the webinar, so you guys can reach out to him if that interests you. Now, once you find them, there's kind of a lengthy, not a lengthy, but there's a process behind getting a quote. And really quick, look on the right-hand side of your screen, and under the GoToWebinar control panel, there's a handout called Questions for a Fulfillment Partner to Consider. That's a list of questions Chris put together for us today, just to have in your mind. You don't have to ask them all these questions, but it's a good list to have to kind of know how to speak to them. And Chris, do you want to kind of explain how we get quotes or things to be aware of or anything like that?
Well, you need to be accurate and concise in what you're telling your fulfillment partner that you want to do, and what it's going to and how it's going to come in. We need to know how the product is going to be received. Is it going to be in boxes, pallets, what have you, and any special handling things. But as long as you completely, what we typically do is we build a statement of work which builds step by step what we're going to do, and you need to be accurate in your communication as to what's going to happen and what we're supposed to get and when it's supposed to come in, so that we're prepared to ship out on the 15th of the month and not waiting for a product on the 15th of the month to come in. So I think on the left here are the different components are the aspects, the different components of a quote. Mm-hmm. and the quotes, the questions I put out that I sent out to you there are just questions that you should ask. It's a communication process, really, and the better you communicate, the better we can then react to what you need to do and support you in your brand building.
Awesome. Yeah, I think to get started on that, I can't gloss over this slide. This is my favorite slide to include. So what are you waiting for? Just do it. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Words of wisdom from Shia LaBeouf. For any of you who don't know this meme or don't know what I'm talking about or why you're looking at this guy, just Google it and you'll figure it out. But Chris and I wanted to give you an assignment. So if you've been in a webinar with us before, you know that I like to get you guys working on stuff. Here's one that we've collaborated on. Today's Thursday, July 28th. That says July 28th. That's because that's a typo. But on August 4th, that's 1 week from today, I want you guys to have some stuff ready. I want you guys to have a brief explanation of your fulfillment needs. So if you were to email a fulfillment partner for a quote, have that email ready, basically. If you've been packing already, I want you to calculate the rough math of your current costs. So look at your you look at your tape cost, your packing material cost, your cost of labor, your the cost of your shipping labels. Get a really good sense of how much money you've been spending on fulfillment, and then bring that to a bottom line number and say, for January I spent 500, for February I spent 568, for March I spent 625, whatever it might be, and use those numbers in hand, keep them in hand while you're requesting quotes, so you know if it's a good deal or not. And then also think about any other pain points that you might have had. Did you have a packer who freaked out at you guys, last month or something like that? That's happened to me several times before. Did you guys have, some other issue where, you couldn't fit all your boxes into your office or something like that? Keep an idea of your costs and your pain points, and they're useful to bring up to a fulfillment partner. Say, hey, I've been spending this much money and I'm having these issues. How can you save me money and fix these issues? So I think that's what's going to give, like Chris said, the more context you can give a partner, the better they're going to be able to do their job and be able to give you a good quote. And then go ahead and canvas some potential partners. Head over to Subscription School. Check out a couple different ones. I'm going to pull up this slide right now. We're going to jump into Q&A, but there's Chris Nikoloff's email. So it's just C Nikoloff at Kable. And what was your where's your last name from, Chris, again? Was it? I'm trying to remember the country.
It's Bulgarian.
Bulgarian, that's
Bulgarian.
What it is. Yes, right. Nikoloff. I think that's such a cool name. My uncle's name is actually Nikolai. We call him Nick or Nicholas, but he spells it with N-I-K, so it always has popped out to me. But so action item reminders. So today, if you guys are leaving this webinar, there's 3 things you want to do. Knock out the assignment we just explained. We have some extra guides on Subscription School, so head over to subscriptionschool.com. Head over to, there's a shipping, and there's also packaging and product development. In both of those sections, I want you to read some of the guides there. In fact, just earlier this week, we collaborated on a piece with Chris on why you should consider outsourcing fulfillment. There are other guides we're working on with him too that you'll be able to see there. But head over to the fulfillment section. There's a lot of cool resources there, guides that I've written, that we've had contributed to us, that other subscription commerce experts have written. When you should outsource fulfillment. Some best practices for an internal operation. Some more justifications behind outsourcing versus in-house. There's just good information on Subscription School, so I want you to read those guides. And if you have more questions, or if you're ready to get a quote started, I think the best person to reach out to right now would be Chris. You've got his contact information. You can mention the webinar, and you can get started on the quote, and he can kind of help you work through the chops of requesting that quote and understanding if outsourcing is a feasible solution for your business. Before we jump in the Q&A, anything else you want to add, Chris?
I just wanted to add one more thing. As you're considering what you're doing, you need to strongly consider and understand your shipping method and delivery time to your clients. Most good fulfillment companies, I know ours does at least, have multiple solutions that don't require FedEx or UPS as a solution, which allows you to reduce your costs and also different ways of shipping and the discounts and what have you. But please consider, one, the type of box you want to ship it in. If you want it to be some odd size or something like that, you might cube out. But the more important thing is the delivery time and determine what your best ship method is going to be, because that's going to be a very significant piece of your cost to you for your box.
Yeah. No, that's like I said. I think that working with a fulfillment partner who's centrally located for that shipping piece of that, I think is extremely powerful. If you can get better shipping rates through a fulfillment partner who's located in the center of the United States through the USPS, and you're only hitting zone 4 or 5 with your shipping costs, I mean, you can drop your cost of goods down $2, and that's huge. So definitely keep that in mind. If you want to ask more questions about that and what he meant when he was explaining that, like I said, just give him an email. He's eager and excited to chat with all you guys about getting this thing off the ground for you. So we're gonna go through a couple questions here, and I'll just read them. I'll read them off, and I'll give my best answer. And then if Chris, if you want to give your best answer, or if you want to add anything or not, just let me know. So the first one is from Kimberly. Hi, Kimberly. Thanks for coming out today. I'm starting a legging subscription box. I would like to use a company for fulfillment. My concern is that I do not send the same legging out each month. How would that work? Do I send each order to a fulfillment company let's see here. I'm going to read this right. So I send each order letting fulfillment company know the print for the order and the custom shipping information. I would have to store all the prints and sizes in the fulfillment company's storage. Kimberly, it sounds like I want to make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. You don't send out the same leggings each month. My question would be, for your leggings, does every customer get a unique pair of leggings, or all your customers get a new pair each month that's all the same? Um, if it's the former, then basically every single one of your boxes is going to be a variation. And I would think that a fulfillment partner would be able to easily handle that. They would have a product tracking software they probably have built or something like that, where they can see we got these 50 mediums in this color and size. We got these 50 smalls in this color and size. We got these 50 larges in this color and size, and they'll group things up and they'll fulfill them for you. That's a little bit of more of a unique solution that I think most subscription boxes would need, but I don't think that it would be out of the ordinary. It sounds more like one-off e-commerce shipping than a subscription box shipping. If it's the latter, then they wouldn't have any problem with it. If it's just a new pair of leggings each month for all of your subscribers, it should be super simple. Chris, what do you think about that?
I agree with you. Depending on how Kimberly's going to work it, it could be an e-com shipment because it's one off here or there, but it's easy to segregate out by color and by size. And if the orders can be grouped together to all blue smalls go to this group of people and stuff like that, we would actually segregate that in our order management system and print out those boxes and make the picking very easy.
Right. Awesome. So Kim says, just a comment, she says, that's so cool you guys suggest outsourcing at 250, because when I calculated out my planning a few months ago, that's the number I landed on. So Kim has helped us validate our assumptions here. Thank you, Kim. Glad you can make it. So Heather says, what if you run out of space before 250 subscribers for in-house fulfillment? Should you find a larger space or just outsource fulfillment sooner? Heather, if you're running out of space below 250 subscribers, I think that's justification right there to outsource. Because even if you're paying a little bit of a premium because you're not meeting a minimum or something like that, the amount of, just think of rent. I mean, I would never suggest that you go spend $1,000 on a warehouse to rent, and that'd be a cheap warehouse. If you, the $1,000 would pay for the full run for sure, and then you wouldn't have to deal with all that stuff. You wouldn't have to sign a lease. You wouldn't have to organize that labor anymore. So I think if you're running out of space, and you're staring down, the barrel of a rental agreement or a leasing agreement or something like that for a commercial space, I would say back up. Don't even worry about it. Get a fulfillment partner on the call, and figure out how they can do it, because it's probably going to be cheaper and a lot less commitment on your part. I mean, at a box that size, you may or may not even be in business in 1, 2, 3 years. I mean, obviously, hopefully you are. But if you try to sign a lease for a box that has 150 subscribers, then in 6 months you just aren't growing enough, and you want to back out of it, it's going to be a lot harder to do that if you're signing with a lease on a commercial space. And like I said, I think the minimums are flexible. Chris mentioned they don't have a minimum; they'll look at different solutions for you. So, I mean, I would suggest trying to just outsource at that point rather than trying to upgrade your space. What do you think, Chris?
I agree, because when you go out for a lease, you're not signing up on a month-to-month lease typically, unless you're going to a storage bin or something like that. And that means you have a longer-term commitment. And if you're running out of space, and you're running out of space now, and if you continue growing your business, when's the next time you're going to have to upgrade again in space? A fulfillment company is going to have 200, 300,000 square foot warehouse like ours, and be able to move things around and be flexible for you. So yeah. If you run out of space now, you got to not only just look at today, but look at what's going to happen in 2 months.
Right.
And are you going to have to do it all over again?
Yep, I agree. So Pearl says, how long does it generally take to set up the outsourced fulfillment from the initial approach to shipping? Pearl, you can get it set up in as quickly as before your next shipping. Just you get the agreement set up, you figure out the costs, you forward all of your product to your fulfillment partner, and you deal with it like that. So it doesn't really take a lot of time. There's no real 6-week period before you can get into your fulfillment partner, unless they're super over encumbered, in which case I just find another fulfillment partner. It's not a really crazy spin up process. Isaac says, I work with mostly military customers that have APO or FPO addresses. There's a lot of complexities with these. I totally hear this, Isaac. And the customers themselves write addresses incorrectly. do warehouse fulfillment companies know it when they see an incorrectly written APO address? Um, I don't think that they're going to be searching your labels one by one. Although if you use someone like Kable for your shipping processing, they probably have a pretty sophisticated piece of software that does address verification. Cratejoy does address verification to some extent, but once you run that stuff through a shipping platform, whether it's like through ShipStation or Pirate Ship or a third parties, like maybe what Kable uses, it'll probably flag those things and then they'll tell you. Um, does that sound right to you, Chris, in terms of like flagging incorrect addresses?
Absolutely. What we typically do is when we get it depends on how you download the file, but we'll look at the order file. We'll run it through as we're segregating out. We'll be looking for incorrect addresses, incomplete zip codes, stuff like that, and flag them out and send them back to the client and say, hey, look, there's a problem with these right here. What do you want to do with them?
Got it.
So yeah, we do that all the time.
Okay. Okay. And I know we're hitting about 3 o'clock Pacific time and 6 o'clock Eastern time. So we're gonna power through these next couple of questions. There's not too much left. So just hang tight with us. We'll probably go just a couple more minutes over. Rochelle says, does Kable have an API integration with Cratejoy? Not natively, but Kable, you guys do build it for some of your customers, right?
We build the API integration. Each one's a little bit unique. We have I think 4 or 5 Cratejoy customers right now, but each one is a little bit different. We have an IT team that we'd have to talk to you about how to get what's unique about your stuff to get it set up. But an API is not that hard to get set up fairly quick.
Great. Kim says, can you give us a ballpark idea of what the prices are? So what's the cost per one variation of subscription box for 1,000 customers, or pick and pack 1,000 variable individual orders? Kim, I would say just for the process of the purpose of getting a quote, I would just say reach out to Chris. And I see that there's Jacqueline also asked, can I email Chris or can I call Chris? You guys totally feel free. I would assume somewhere around $1 a box to $2 a box would be, probably around, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on what your subscription is. But regardless of your total volume, it's probably going to be somewhere around that amount in general. But just reach out to Chris, give him your specifics, and he can give you a good quote. Cody says, no question.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you guys both for taking time out of your day to do this. You answered many questions, Ariel, that I didn't know I had. I've received a lot of insight, so thank you. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
Did you want to add anything to that, Chris, that Kim's question about the quotes?
Well, it's totally dependent upon the details. How many pieces go into the box? What is there special packaging? There's
exactly.
Too many variables for me to throw a number out there. The devil is always in the details, and you got to get us the details to know what we're going to be able to do.
Yep, agreed. Customers choose their print. Oh, this is back to Kimberly's question about the leggings. So each month there are 500 customers, but not all the leggings are going out the same. So yeah, Kimberly, kind of like what we explained. We would the fulfillment partner would segment those things based on the print, and then they would just fulfill each print, as needed. They build like a packing line for these 300, prints, and then maybe these 200 and this 100. So I don't think it would be an issue as long as you explain that to your fulfillment partner, kind of like we talked about, just communicating all the details as best you can. They'll be able to give you a very accurate and realistic set of expectations for how you need to communicate to them in terms of what prints are being put in which boxes and how much it's going to cost you. So Jacqueline says, what do you think about capacity management? Jacqueline, let me know what you mean. Does that mean anything to you, Chris, off the top of your head, capacity management?
I'm not sure. I mean, if you're afraid that you're going to exceed someone's capacity or a fulfillment company's capacity, I guess that's the only thing that's getting to me. I don't know what to say to you at that point in time. I know that we can do, we do 10 to 20,000 boxes in a day for people or 2 days. So I'm not sure where the question is going there.
Yeah,
Storage
let us know, Jacqueline, what you mean. Maybe we can figure that out here. So what's the maximum amount of time a fulfillment should take for a monthly box business? 2 days each month, 1 day? It totally depends, Vijoy. It can depend on your fulfillment partner. I think that, like Chris just said, they do 20,000 boxes over a day or two. So I think that basically just answered your question. Alex says, I'm wondering about customer service integration. We get several subscribers a month who have issues with their address change, delivery. Would a fulfillment center communicate with the customers, or would would they mediate? Alex, I would say, just on my side, if you can, you should expect probably the vast majority of the time for your fulfillment company to do one thing: pack and ship your boxes and provide you with tracking numbers, or maybe like light customer service. Except they're not going to be a white glove customer service um, solution for you. They're not going to be sitting on your email and like replying to people about address changes. Um, what do you think about that, Chris? I think you guys have a little bit more of an advanced customer support team at Kable, but I think it's kind of unique. Is that right?
It is unique, and it's true. But you're right. Your description is proper. It's light customer service. We'll fire off the tracking numbers to someone, either the customer service people or to the owner of the company, and we'll handle those kind of questions. But we're not sitting at a computer waiting to answer questions on a typical basis like that. There's companies out there that handle
Yep.
small to large capability on customer service. We would integrate with those guys so that they could look at our screens and we could transmit information back and forth so that they wouldn't have to make phone calls.
Yep.
But if you're looking for a fulfillment company, you hit it right on the head, Jesse, as to what they should expect from a typical fulfillment company.
Got it. Daniel says, what would you pay to pack one item in a poly mailer? Daniel, just reach out to Chris. His contact is on the screen in front of you, and you can talk about the volume you're doing and get a good quote for that. Like I said, it's so many different variables of what the type of product is. It's probably hard for him to give you a quote over the webinar, but just reach out to him and he can do that for you. Barbara says, how much more expensive is it to have split lots? For example, adding a welcome gift for first-time subscribers. So Barbara, it's probably not going to greatly affect cost. It's only going to affect cost on those number of boxes that you're having an extra item in. That's just another part of your directions, and say, hey, Chris, each month I'm going to have 200 boxes that I'm going to put a welcome card into. Here are those labels for those 200 boxes, and they're going to take care of it. So it's not going to like add some crazy expense to add in an extra item once in a while or an extra welcome card. And like I said, I think that's another good question. Email Chris, explain your scenario to him, and he'll give you a good quote and give you good expectations on what you can expect for kind of unique things like that. But inherently, it's not going to like drastically change the price to have an extra item in a portion of your boxes. Jacqueline says, what's the best way to bridge the gap between taking orders and fulfillment? She also says, does the product get shipped directly to distribution? Okay, so I think that's the two same questions here from Jacqueline. So Jacqueline, just to explain the kind of the process, fulfillment centers are still, you're going to have all your products shipped to them. They're going to deal with receiving that order and storing it. In terms of getting your orders from your customers sent over to them, that's something that you'll have to provide to them unless there's some type of integration between the shipments. And so you'll send them like a PDF file with 600 labels attached to it and any special instructions and that type of thing. That's kind of the basic flow. If there's more detail you want around that, maybe based on some nuance that we aren't really capturing, like I said, just considering the time constraints, just reach out to Chris, explain your situation, and he can kind of give you a little bit more color around it.
Jesse, we typically will, for someone that's going to do manual uploads like that, we provide a template so that when that data is filled in, it can be passed to us in some kind of CSV file or something like that, and we can download it straight into our system. But you're right; it's a matter of how you integrate where your orders are coming from and getting it into some kind of file that we can then manage on our management system internally.
Okay, sounds good. So, Jonatre, I think is the way you say your name. I might have just butchered it. I'm sorry. But you asked, does fulfillment companies, do they send boxes overseas? Absolutely. I mean, you'll just give them overseas labels, and they'll slap on the box and they'll just hand it off to the courier. So there's no problems there. Jacqueline says, with so many different SKUs of inventory, what do you think is the best way to organize this? Let's not get into inventory management. If you have lots of different SKUs, in terms of a SKU being a certain subscription box, so you have maybe several variations of your product, that's something you just need to explain to your fulfillment partner. So since we're going over a little bit, we'll just kind of gloss over that. But basically, if you're managing inventory yourself, you'll need a piece of software. If you're working with a fulfillment partner like Kable, explain it to them, and they can help you help it set up in a coherent way for them. So does Kable do custom packaging as well? Yes, they do. Alex says, awesome, thank you. What about return packages? Do they typically go back to the fulfillment center? Yep. So with Kable, they'll go back to Kable, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, but they'll go back, they'll let you know about returns, and they'll, you know, maybe do a little bit of that light customer service to make sure that that customer gets their box or whatever's next. Is that right?
Yep. We'll have already worked out with the company, one of the listeners, what the rules are for when a product comes back, whether we have to ask for authorization or whether we just ship something back out. And when it comes back, we take care of it from there per the rules we've already pre-established.
Got it. So last two questions here. Lisa says, do fulfillment companies do printing? Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the fulfillment company. A lot of them are going to do box printing. It looks like, Lisa, you mentioned like printing handouts. So maybe not like that type of stationary printing. It's just a matter of just asking them. I think it would probably be easier to, you know, just get your stuff printed at a local print shop or through a FedEx or something like that, and then just ship it to your fulfillment partner. But you know, if you want help to get setting that stuff up, you find a good fulfillment partner who can help you run down those leads and get cheaper printing costs. That person might be Chris. So just email him, Lisa, and he can probably help you figure out some solutions for printing stuff too. So looks like we got lots of thank yous. Thank you guys all for coming. The last question here is: does Kable work with pirate ship? So it's not a. I don't think that you guys have a direct integration with pirate ship. Pirate ship is for anybody who doesn't know, it's a batch shipping software. So you load in a bunch of information, and you get a. It's really easy to print a big batch of shipping in there. And actually, it's funny that you guys mentioned pirate ship because the guy who built pirate ship is that fellow right there in the foreground of the first photo. That's Bjorn. So you know, I think Kable. I think you guys work with pirate ship in the sense that you guys can take the labels from them, but I don't think there's anything else there in terms of integrations. Is that right, Chris?
We have not yet. We've worked with a number of other companies. If we need to work with pirate ship, we'd be glad to talk with Bjorn and get something integrated there and work out that thing from
Cool.
a shipping standpoint.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, looks like that's it for the webinar. We got no more questions. Thank you guys so much again for coming. Let me know in Subscription School on the Subscription School Facebook page of what you guys thought. There'll be an exit survey too. Give us your thoughts on the exit survey. Again, if you have questions, the first person you should email is Chris. Otherwise, post your questions to me or get them to me at Jesse at Cratejoy. And thanks again, everybody, for attending. And Chris, thank you so much for coming and explaining this to everybody and taking time out of your schedule to help us all along with our fulfillment needs.
Jesse, thank you very much, and to everyone out there, thanks for jumping on the call. Hopefully, I was able to answer a lot of your questions and be clear about how things go. So I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you guys all so much. I'm going to end the webinar now, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks. Over now.